Okay, so everybody's talking about AI these days, right?
It's pretty much unavoidable.
So you're probably thinking about how to bring it into your organization.
Yeah, makes sense. A lot of potential there.
But hold on a sec. Before you jump in head first, let's talk about the risks.
We don't want any digital disasters, right?
Exactly. We're going deep today on a recent guide all about assessing and mitigating AI security risks. And let me tell you, it's a real eye-opener.
Yeah, one of the things that really jumped out at me was just how vulnerable organizations might be right now.
In what way?
Well, did you know that something like 61% of companies have already been hit by a third-party data breach?
That's a lot.
And what's even more concerning is that 75% of those breaches targeted the software or tech supply chain.
And that's where AI comes in.
Exactly. AI is a huge part of that these days.
So that's a pretty scary thought.
It is.
But why is this such a big deal specifically with AI?
Right.
I mean, isn't cybersecurity always a concern?
It is. But the rapid development and integration of AI tools is creating some unique challenges.
Like what?
Well, think about it this way. A lot of AI vendors are smaller companies, maybe, less than 50 employees.
Yeah.
They're working at this incredible pace to push out new products and features.
Right.
Which is exciting, for innovation.
Yep.
But security might not always be their top priority.
Makes sense.
Or they simply don't have the resources for robust security programs.
So you're saying it's not just about checking if they have the right certifications?
Right.
We might need to dig a little deeper into their practices, especially with smaller vendors.
Exactly. And even with larger, well-established companies, the rush to add AI features to existing software can lead to oversights.
I see.
We need to be asking tough questions about how data privacy is being handled when these new AI capabilities come online.
Yeah, it's like everyone suddenly has this shiny new AI toy, but nobody's quite sure if they've read the instruction manual.
Exactly.
Especially when it comes to handling sensitive data. And with new tools popping up all the time, it feels almost impossible to keep track of what everyone's using.
Yeah, you've hit on another major risk, their lack of visibility. Organizations are struggling to even identify all the AI tools their employees are using.
It's like a game of whack-a-mole.
Yeah, kind of. Manual inventories get outdated so quickly.
Yeah.
Network monitoring might miss things.
Right.
And even those agent softwares designed to track AI usage, they can have blind spots.
So it's a real digital game of hide and seek, but with potentially disastrous consequences if something goes wrong.
Absolutely. And the problem gets even worse when you think about how these AI tools are integrated with your existing systems.
Oh, right. All those connections.
You've got APIs, which are like digital messengers, allowing different software systems to talk to each other. And OAuth, which is like a digital key that gives AI tools access to specific parts of your systems.
Okay, so if these connections aren't properly secured and monitored,
right,
that creates a whole network of potential data leak points.
Exactly.
So we need to know not just what AI tools are out there, but how they're connected to our other systems, what kind of access they have, and who's managing those integrations. It sounds complicated.
It can be, but you don't have to be a tech expert to start asking the right questions.
Okay.
Like, who has access to what? How is that access granted and controlled? What are the potential points of failure?
So we need to be just as cautious about how AI tools are interacting with our data as we are with, the wiring in our house.
Exactly. It's your critical data and your systems.
And I imagine there are also some legal and ethical considerations here, too. What happens if these AI tools, accidentally break the rules?
Compliance is absolutely crucial. Organizations need to make sure their AI adoption aligns with all the applicable regulations and internal standards.
Right, so it's not just about avoiding fines.
No, it's about maintaining trust with your customers, your partners, the public.
So transparency is key.
Absolutely. Transparency is key. And that means understanding how these tools work, what data they're accessing, and what potential risks they might pose.
So it's not enough to just, throw AI at a problem and hope for the best.
Right.
We need to think about the big picture, the ethical implications, how to use these powerful tools responsibly.
Exactly.
But what about the people actually using these tools? I mean, are they ready for this?
That's a great question. A lot of employees might not even know the proper way to use AI or the potential risks involved.
Okay.
They might be using unauthorized tools or inputting sensitive data without realizing the implications or even, unknowingly contributing to the spread of misinformation.
So it's kind of like giving someone a powerful tool without proper training.
Exactly. Accidents are bound to happen.
And with the speed at which AI is evolving,
Yeah.
you can't just have, a one-time training session and call it a day.
You're absolutely right. We need clear, easy to understand, acceptable use policies and ongoing training programs that keep up with the latest developments.
So it sounds like we're talking about a pretty big shift in how organizations need to approach technology adoption and data security.
I think so.
But don't worry, we're not going to leave you hanging with all these potential risks. In part 2, we're going to dig into some practical strategies for mitigating them, so stay tuned. Welcome back. So we've looked at some of the risks of AI in organizations.
Definitely some things to be aware of.
But now I think it's time to talk about solutions.
Yeah, what can we actually do about these challenges?
Exactly. How do we make sure AI is a force for good in our organizations?
Well, the first step is kind of like detective work.
Oh, okay.
We need to know what we're dealing with.
Right.
It's all about discovery.
Okay, so we need to figure out what AI tools are already being used.
Even the ones hiding in the shadows.
So how do we play AI detective?
Well, you could start with
Yeah.
good old-fashioned manual project, cataloging. Talk to different teams, departments, figure out what they're using,
Right.
what data they're working with.
But that probably gets outdated pretty quick.
Yeah, that's the downside.
Yeah.
People are constantly experimenting with new AI tools.
So we need something a bit more automated.
Exactly. Network monitoring can help identify known AI tools based on their traffic patterns.
Okay.
But it's not perfect, especially for newer or more niche tools that might not have a clear signature.
So what else is there?
Well, there's analyzing app integrations.
What's that?
This can help you find AI tools that are connecting to your core business applications.
Okay.
But it won't catch everything. Some people might be experimenting outside of those systems.
So we need a bunch of different tools just to find these things?
Yeah, it can feel that way.
Yeah.
There are also agents you can use, like browser extensions, to pinpoint where AI tools are being used.
Interesting.
And there's something called machine-generated email discovery.
What?
It sounds complicated, but it basically analyzes the content of emails to
yeah.
flag potential use of new or niche AI tools.
Okay, so let's say we've found all these AI tools in our organization. What's the next step?
Trust but verify.
What does that mean?
Just because a tool says it's secure or has some fancy certification doesn't mean we should just take their word for it.
So we need to do our own due diligence.
Absolutely. Review their security certifications, of course. But don't stop there.
Yeah.
Dig into their data privacy practices. See if they've had any recent data breaches.
So it's kind of like a background check on these vendors.
Exactly. You wouldn't hire a contractor to work on your house without checking their references first.
Yeah, that's true. But wouldn't this process be pretty overwhelming if every employee wanted to try out a new tool?
That's a valid point. A lot of organizations are creating lists of pre-approved tools that have already gone through this vetting process.
So that makes things easier.
Exactly. It streamlines things and helps to mitigate risks.
But could that also stifle innovation?
It could. That's why communication and clear processes are so important.
Right. So how do we balance security with, the need to explore new tools?
Maybe there's a process for requesting new tools or a sandbox environment where they can be tested.
Okay, so we've found the tools. We've vetted the vendors.
Right.
What's next on our security checklist?
Well, we need to understand how these tools are connected to our systems.
Yeah.
How they talk to each other.
Right, those APIs.
Exactly. We need to map out those connections, understand how they work, evaluate the scopes of access that have been granted.
So we're making sure they're not leaking data.
Precisely. And it's not just the technical connections.
No.
We need to consider who's managing those integrations, what security protocols are in place,
right?
How we're protecting the identities managing those systems.
So it gets pretty complicated.
It can be.
Yeah.
But the more we understand these connections, the better we can mitigate those risks.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
It is. And speaking of layers, we can't forget about the supply chain.
Right.
We've talked about vetting vendors. But it's not enough to just trust that main vendor.
Because they might be relying on other companies.
Exactly. Sub-processors for various parts of their service.
So if one link in the chain is weak,
the whole thing could break down.
Right. So what do we do about that?
We need to keep an eye on our vendors' sub-processor lists. investigate any new AI additions to their offerings.
Okay.
And make sure everything aligns with our overall risk appetite for AI.
So our detective work extends beyond our organization.
Yeah, into the complex web of relationships our vendors have.
This is a lot.
It can be.
Yeah.
But with all this talk about technical safeguards and detective work,
Yeah.
there's a human element we can't overlook.
Right.
Communication is key.
So we need to actually talk to our employees about AI.
We do.
Right.
And not just with those, generic security awareness emails.
Right.
We need to make sure employees understand the risks, how to use these tools safely and responsibly.
And where to go if they have questions.
Exactly. Think clear, easy to understand, acceptable use policies.
Okay.
Readily available resources, a clear process for requesting new tools, and regular updates on best practices.
So it's not just about the technical safeguards.
No, it's about fostering a culture of responsible AI use.
Which requires ongoing communication and training.
And leadership that emphasizes the importance of AI security.
So it's a cultural shift.
It is. We've covered a lot of ground here.
We have. From finding these AI tools to vetting vendors.
To understanding how they're integrated and considering the supply chain.
It seems like a pretty comprehensive approach to mitigating these risks.
It is. But it's important to remember that AI is constantly evolving.
Right. So what seems manageable today
could become a major problem tomorrow.
So we need to stay vigilant, keep learning.
And be prepared to adapt our strategies as the AI landscape changes.
There's a lot to keep up with.
It is. But the potential benefits of AI are enormous.
They are. So let's take a break and come back for the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
Where we'll explore the bigger picture implications of AI and what it all means for the future. Okay, so we're back. And we've talked about the risks of AI in organizations.
Definitely some potential downsides.
But we've also explored some ways to mitigate those risks.
Right. It's not all doom and gloom.
So I guess the big question is AI worth it?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is. With all these potential risks, is it worth the trouble?
Well, there's no easy answer.
Right.
It depends on the organization. Their goals, their risk tolerance, a whole host of factors.
But how do we even begin to weigh those benefits against the risks?
That's the tough part. The AI landscape is constantly changing.
So what might seem like a manageable risk today
could be a major headache tomorrow.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we need to be flexible and stay informed.
Absolutely. And build a culture of continuous learning and improvement.
So it's like tending a garden.
Oh, I like that.
You can't just plant the seeds and walk away.
You got to keep watering, weeding, adjusting to the changing seasons.
Exactly. And if you do that, the rewards can be incredible.
AI has the potential to completely change the way we work.
Unlock new insights, create entirely new possibilities.
But it's a powerful tool that needs to be handled with care.
So for our listener out there, what's the one thing they should keep in mind?
AI is not a magic solution. It's a tool.
And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
Exactly. It's up to us to guide its development, set ethical boundaries, and make sure it benefits humanity.
Well said. On that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into AI risks.
It's been a fascinating conversation.
We've covered a lot of ground, from the technical details to the ethical implications.
And I hope our listeners are walking away with a better understanding of AI.
And a sense of empowerment.
Knowledge is power. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged. The future of AI is being shaped right now, and we all have a role to play.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.